Okay, so there's been, I've found you can say, better way of doing premise data than the old method that we used to do on Google Earth, where you pull all the premise data into a folder, and it's also less time consuming. So basically, what you want to do is you want to start off with a layer where your block polygons are. Your block polygons have to be separated into an AG folder and a what do you call this? Oh well, the block polygons need to be in an AG folder. Yeah, that's basically it. So what I'm going to do here is just save it onto my desktop, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag that in. Let me just open my desktop here, polygons, and I'm going to select all of these polygons. Okay, now the problem is that all of these polygons are in okay, they've got a name block polygon and AG. So just something I've picked up over the last last 2 months is that when you pull in premise data, you can also say add layers to group, or well, not premise data, anything into QGIS. So I recommend from now you just say add layers to group, and when you pull it in, you can see that it's only showing AG 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's not bending the layer name as well. So this is just something that will allow you to use the same info over and over instead of having to change the styling of all of your layers. You can just use one template. So we are in the process of looking at creating a template and then just having everyone use it, and I'm thinking that that should make it a lot easier for everyone, so you don't need to go and change all of the styling every time that you pull in a a high level diagram and want to make it a low level. So the next step is, since all of these are separate layers, we just need to go and merge them. So in order to merge them, we just type in merge, and then under vector general you get merge vector layers. So if you then just select all of these layers and you run this, then it will have everything in one big layer. Let me just remove this layers. Okay, so if you go and look at the open attribute table and you look at the attribute table, you'll see here there are block names, and under layer you've got your AG numbers. So that's the data you want on them. If you don't have AGs or you don't have block numbers, then the data is not going to work for you. Well, this process is not going to work for you, and you'll need to just make sure that it is in this same format on the Google Earth side when you save. If it is, then your data your polygons should be correct here. Now, what I've picked up is that a lot of the block layers also have invalid geometry. and when you start running the process where you add the block and AG numbers to your data, then sorry, then you have well, you can't do it because the process stops and it says invalid geometry. So what I also just like to do is you can type in here fix, then under vector geometry select fix, and this merged layer, just run the fix, and now anything that had invalid geometry will be gone from this layer. Okay, next step is to pull in your premise data. So for your premise data, you've got two options. You can pull in the NAD from the KML, and you can follow the same process that I did now for the blocks, where you just pull in all the AG's NAD and then drop it in QGIS and merge it. And then there's also the other option of going layer, open attribute layer, or open attribute table, no, add layer, sorry, layer, add layer, and then delimited text layer. Now you'll have this window and you will be asked for a file name. What you can do is you can just go and navigate to the specific file, or you can go via your file browser and just go to that premise data file. Now what we've got here is an Excel file, but what you need to do is you need to save it as a CSV file. Now in order to use this CSV or create the CSV file, all you need to do is go File, Save As, and then just select CSV, the comma delimited one here, and you say Save and OK. I've got it open already on another or at another spot, so I won't be able to just save over it. But yeah, okay, you might not have seen that because it was off screen. Let's just do that again. So you open it up and File, Save As, CSV, and Save. And then what you can do is you can use the CSV file. So you can either navigate or just drag it in like this, and then you'll have longitude and latitude. Now when you do this for the first time, you will need to add the geometry CRS. So you just click on the drop down, select project CRS. The first time it will only be blank and it won't allow you to import. Then just make sure your longitude and latitude is selected here, and you can then say add. Now I've had cases where I've pulled this in and the premise data didn't align with the blocks, and the reason was that the longitude and latitude values were mixed up on the Excel file. So what you need to do in those cases is just swap them around. Okay, so I'll just minimize this one. What you need to do next then is you need to, whoops, I'm going to use this, okay. You need to go back to this processing toolbox. If it isn't open, you just need to click on the cog there. If there is no cog, just give me a phone call and I'll help you troubleshoot why it might not be there. Okay, so you just type in join, and then under vector general you want to select join attributes by location. So all you need to do is open this up, and then for the base layer you want to select your premise data, and the join layer will be your vector geometry, fixed geometries, which is the polygons for your blocks. Now select overlays, within and contains, and under fields to add you need to select the name and the layer. So we checked that the name was the block number and the layer was the AG name or number. And then all you need to do is run. So once you've run this, it will give you a join layer output, and what you can see now is that it added name and layer here, which is your blocks and AGs. So the next step is to select all and then click on this copy. Just using Control-C doesn't always work, and oh, sorry, my voice is going. So just pressing Control-C doesn't always work, but if you use the button it's going to just copy everything. And now what you need to do is you need to open a new Excel file. So let's go File, Paste Blank or Blank Workbook, and over here you just paste text only. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in here, and okay, so there is a chance that it might do this. What's happening here is that everything is being pasted strangely. I don't know why this happens sometimes and sometimes not, but if this does happen, what I suggest you do is just close all of your Excel files that you've got opened. Just want to wait for that to close, and then reopen your Excel. So I'm just busy opening it up. Excel. Okay, and blank workbook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going back here, I'm selecting all again, copying again, and paste, and now it's working correctly. So what you want it to look like is that every column needs to be in its correct spot. So AGs should be in AGs, blocks and block, or block numbers and block numbers, and you don't want the street name to be split into different columns. Okay, now what we have here is a bunch of premise data that had incorrect blocks and AGs. So if we look here, block 22 and block 22 correspond, AG9 and AG9 correspond, but there are sections down at the bottom where there is premise data, new premise data, where the blocks and AGs don't align. So all you need to do here is just go and let's just go to the top, copy, and as you can see there is a few lines that didn't have premise data. We'll sort them out just now, and then we want to paste over these values, and the same with the AGs, and go to the top and paste over them. Okay, so now we're sure about the AG and block numbers, and what we can do now is just delete these. If you were working with a KML, you would have just dragged the KML into QGIS, and you would basically have names, which would be the street numbers, and description, which would be the street names. And then you would have added the AG and block number. Then all you need to do is just copy that data across to the template and just fill it in so that it's correct like this. There's another section that you'll also have when you use the KML that you need to use, and it's the WKT-GOM. It's just well-known something geometries. It's basically the coordinates of your points, and the only thing you need to do is do a text to column solution here. So what I'll do quickly is I'll replace point space bracket with nothing. As you can see, it's been removed from the side there, and then since there's a closed bracket at the end, I'm just going to remove that as well. And you'll notice I selected the whole column. The idea of that is to get to only find and replace in that column. So when you do a find and replace, you can just Control F and click replace, or you can click here and say replace. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I will be adding an extra column since there's two values here, and I select my column, go data and text to columns. This is delimited, and the delimiter is a space between the two. Then I click next, and here I've got the two split up, and I'm just going to select text and select this one again, and I'm going to make it text. So the reason for using the text is that you can see the numbers here are nice and long, so it's very accurate coordinates, and I prefer using these very accurate coordinates to send to Vuma for them to upload. And then when in the future you need to use the premise data, there isn't really any risk of it not lining up to what you are actually working with. Okay, so once you've done this, you just copy the latitude and the longitude to the corresponding correct fields as well. For this one it was already done, so I'm not going to bother with that now. So just delete these. Okay, so then you've got your premise data as you would want it, and I'm going to go File and Save As, and I'm just going to save this on the desktop as I don't really need to use this premise data. It's just for training purposes now, and I will save it as premise data training. Okay. Okay, you'll see that I saved it as an Excel. You can save it as a CSV automatically. Just be aware that a CSV does not allow more than one sheet, and any formulas that you had on your sheet will now be gone once you've saved it as a CSV. CSV also does not save any width of the columns or anything like that. Okay, so now we've got our premise data exported, but we're still not 100% sure if this is correct. So what I'm going to do now is go File, Save As, and I'm just going to make it a CSV again and save. And what I'm going to do now is just deactivate these, and under Layer, Add Layer, Add Vector Layer, no, Delimited Text Layer, I'm just going to navigate to that premise data CSV, and I'm going to add it. Okay, so now we've got all of our premise data here, and we want to double check our values. So in order to double check these values, I'm going to okay, so I know that there is something wrong with this premise data. So since I know that, and if you, for instance, have street names that are missing, what I suggest you do is you don't go to this step first thing. It's going to be better for you to just go to the next step or the following step, and then move back to the what do you call it, the QA step. So what you need to do here is you click on your layer that you just imported and go save feature as. Now what you want the version as is a geo package file, and then all you need to do is just select a space where you need to save it or want to save it where you're working, and give it a name. I'm just going to name it something random and save. Now scrolling down, I know that my geometry type is only points, and then everything else is fine. Okay, so there we've got my geo package file. In some case, or when you do the export, just be sure to tick add saved file to map, and that will mean that once you've saved it, it automatically gets put into your QGIS and you don't need to go and drag it back in. So it's just something of a convenience. Okay, so once you've done this, you will be able to do bulk edits on your file. Now when you're doing premise data, you might also want to use this method, as it will enable you to go through your premise data more efficiently and effectively and basically quicker. So what I'm going to do next is under the layer styling panel. If you don't know how to get it, or it isn't open your side, you can just right click and go layer styling panel. So just on any of the toolbars, right click and tick layer styling panel on. There's a shortcut for this as well, it's F7. So F7 opens and closes the layer styling panel. So what you want to do is you want to select categorized here, and then you want to do 3 checks. You will check your AGs, block numbers, and your street names. So I'll start off with the AGs since they are the biggest, and classify. Okay, so I had the wrong layer select here, so I'm just going to redo this for the correct layer, and this should be AGs, classify. So you see it's got AG1 all the way down to AG26. Now what we've got here is the AGs are all different colors. So this allows you to do a visual check and make sure that there isn't any fault. So or if you're doing planning, then doing this check will allow you to get your premise data right the first time, and you won't need to go back to it. And for instance, if QA is, or the pipeline on QA is very full, your QA might only be done a week from the day that you actually did it and after you actually need it. So you might want to start with your splicing diagram, and then you get premise data back that's saying this isn't correct. So this is just a good way to double check your data. So what you can see here is all of the AGs have their own colors, Everything seems fine over here. That's fine, fine. So everything looks like an AG on its own. And if you go and look here, you can see there's different AGs like that. Let's for instance select here. So AG16 is this section, and then if we go to here, we can see this one color is AG16 and the next, and so on and so on. So that's just something to kind of double check your work. If you've got a red AG here and a lone red dot here, then you know that you've have an incorrect allocation for your premise data. So that should be able to fix all of your issues. Now the next step is to go and select your your block number. Just classify and say yes, and you can see once again all of these blocks look like they are separate and corresponding towards the actual polygons on your KML. Now the next one is the next step is to select street names, and when you say street names here, I'm immediately picking up that there is something wrong here. So if you look at the street names, one street should have a flowing street name, or well, one row, and you've got occasions like this one. If I just go and shuffle the colors a bit, you can see there's blue intermixed with I think this is green, and that means that you've got a different street name for the same road. But now if you go and you select your Google Maps and pull that in, let's just move it to the bottom, you see here, okay, so this one row is actually sitting on two streets, so there is a chance that they might not correspond because of entrances being on the one side and not the other. But one thing that's concerning me a lot is over here you've got different street names on one section, and the only possible street name here is 2nd Avenue. So what you want to do in this case is select this and go to Open Attribute Table, and then over here just dock it. So you just dock the attribute table, and then you want to use Move Selection to Top. Now if you click that and you use the select tool and select these roads, what you get is all of these, or everything that you selected, all these pins, their data comes up to the top. And what I'm seeing is the street name doesn't correspond at all with the actual street that is being depicted here. So that tells me that the premise data, the street names are incorrect for all of these sections, because you can see it happening all over. Now there's an easy way to fix this, luckily. What we can do is we just click the edit mode, or activate edit mode, and now since we know that all of these premises are 2nd Avenue, I'm going to go and type 2nd Avenue, and I can just copy this, and I can go and arrow down, paste everything that's blue. Okay, so now I've corrected this whole block's street names in a few seconds, or well, probably a minute, where it would have taken a lot longer in Google Earth. Okay, so the section here you can select as well, or well, I'm going to select, and I know that these will then need to be 2nd Avenue as well. So you can see here nothing is corresponding except these few addresses. So I am just going to go and sort by this so that I don't go and correct 2nd Avenue over and over if I don't need to, and then just continue where it's incorrect. So that's an easy way of doing this premise data. Okay, so the next thing, after you've corrected everything and you're sure about your premise data, is you can just save this layer, and all you need to do is go and select all again, and you might want to go and sort by block number or AG number, just to make it a bit easier to read when you export it. So just going to turn off edit mode, so select all and copy and go back to your Excel file and just clear it out and paste, and it's doing that thing again. So all I'll do is I'll just close up and I will open it again, paste again, and it should be working. Now once you're done with your premise data and you're happy with what you've got, the next step is to pull it back into your KML. Now there's an easy way of doing this. Use the CSV that of the premise data that has been corrected and you're happy with, and drag it in, and you'll see that it's got all of the data that, or it kind of looks the same as QGIS. So I'm going to go next, and latitude field, longitude field. In most cases we will have geolatitude and geolongitude here, so you will need to manually select those, but it says latitude and longitude fields here. So if you go next, and this you can also keep like that, and you say finish. Now the first time you do this, you want to create a template, and you want to set the name field as your street number, and then just select an icon color that you want to use, an icon that you want to use. So if you also always are using the webcam icon, then you can just select that and OK, and you can save this at the spot that it gives you there. Now what is happening, just want to check something. Okay, oops, okay, so what I'm seeing here is it looks like there's premise data over here, and then for some reason there's one lone premise pin over here. So what most likely happened here was there's a 2 that was deleted, and now it's seeing it as 1 point something coordinates instead of 20 something. So that premise just maybe needs to be corrected. and if you go in here, it looks like it did not select the correct icon, but that doesn't matter. We can just right click, properties, and make sure that it is using the correct one. Share style, and this one, it's a V. Okay. And okay, so now you've got your premise data for your KML, and the bonus is when you click on it, you've got the street name and you've got the premise type and everything that Vuma uses on here, so they can more easily what do you call it, compare your data or between QuickBase and the KML. Okay, so that's basically it. If you have any questions, feel free to call me, and I will answer anything that I can, or figure out what you still need if I can't answer you. So yeah, I hope this helps and makes premise data a lot easier.